We set up Wananchi Group. The vision was to create a vertically integrated multimedia infrastructure company. We'd seen the growth and explosion of mobile phones, and the question was what next. And we believe it's about multimedia and about the infrastructure to carry that multimedia. And so we started creating this company, and because the background of the people in the business, my background doing infrastructure in Africa for the last 20 years, my partner Mark Schneider's background doing infrastructure in many countries around the world, many emerging markets in the rest of the world for 20 years, we were able to attract the sort of investors who believed in what we were doing. We have many different sorts of capital in the business. We have two strategic investors, one Liberty Global, which is the largest cable company in the world outside North America, and the second one Altice, which is a French cable group, and they own the French cable company and the Israeli cable company, and are also a big cable group. So they're strategic investors in the group. We have OPIC, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation of the US government, very big investors in the group. You cannot underestimate the positive role played by the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. OPIC is the part of development finance for the US government, and they showed a huge commitment to this project, and that commitment was a stimulus to other investors coming on board. Where investors see opportunity, they can get over a lot of problems, and so whilst you're right, we raised this money through the post-election violence in Kenya, through all the financial crisis, the first and the second wave of the global financial crisis, through political negative political perception of Kenya because of the ICC. We raised it through increased terrorism in the region, and particularly in Kenya. And all of those are negative items. But the positive item is that East Africa is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. I saw again this week they're projecting the whole of Africa growing at 5% plus. And so investors see that. And if investors see that there is opportunity and they see a large scalable project which is building infrastructure for which there's a demand, then they will invest. The total financing round was $130 million. There were 4 investors in that. Helios, actually 5 investors: Helios, Liberty Global, Altice, ECP, and AT&T. And the combined total of their take-up was $130 million. That's a difficult question to answer, because the only way you know what it's worth is when somebody decides to buy it, and we're not selling. What I can tell you is that we now have, with this current round, the total invested in the group is in excess of $400 million. It's a big problem. We have a situation in Africa where the regulatory regime has not kept pace with the market. So over the last 2 years, we've seen rapid expansion in the pay TV market, and yet regulation hasn't kept pace with that rapid expansion. And so everywhere in the world, the pay TV industry is characterized by premium content being a driver of subscriptions and eyeballs, and that premium content is so important that in many parts of the world it's actually classified as must-have content, because without it there are people who simply won't take the service. What that's resulted in most markets is the competition regulators and the telecoms regulators have turned around and said, look, if we want a competitive market, we must regulate this premium content, and we won't allow any one pay TV platform to own and then exclusively distribute to themselves that premium content. There's nothing wrong with you owning premium content exclusively, but you must then sell it to all the platforms on broadly similar economic terms. Because if you only sell it to your own platform, what you're creating is a monopoly, and that's bad for the consumer, and it's bad for the market. And unfortunately, in this market, that hasn't happened. We have appealed to the competition regulator. We have appealed to the Communications Authority, and to date they haven't taken any action. Now, we have seen remarks in the press stating that the Communications Authority will take action, but we haven't seen any action as yet. So I really don't know whether they're going to act. I would hope they will act. We are giving both regulators the opportunity to act, but ultimately, if we don't see any action, then we would have to pursue the matter ourselves through whatever legal means are available to us. It's a very complicated subject. If you the reason why the competition economics are complicated is the EPL rights are for a certain period of time, and we could go out and bid for the EPL rights. However, the EPL rights currently are sold as the whole of sub-Saharan Africa is sold together. Now, we're not present in every market in sub-Saharan Africa because we're building fibre to the home, and we don't have markets. We don't have as many subscribers as DSTV has. Particularly, DSTV has the South African market. So what they have been doing is actually cross-subsidizing their very rich South African market with other smaller markets, and using that cross-subsidy to be able to fund buying the rights for the whole of Africa. And that's a competition issue, right? That's what monopolies do. Monopolies who have a very big market go out and they create barriers to entry for people who try to come in by cross-subsidizing and keeping them out of markets, because in Kenya, for example, if there was no cross-subsidy and there was no and Kenya was auctioned on its own, we probably could bid and get those rights, but that's not the situation we're facing. We're facing a situation where the Premier League is auctioned for the whole of Africa, and our competition is cross-subsidizing between one market and another market, and therefore is able to put up barriers from us getting those rights. When you buy the rights, all you're buying is 3 years of rights. So now imagine the situation you're creating. What is one where, okay, so let's say I bid this year. So now the consumers on DSTV don't get the Premier League. Everybody has to now buy a Zuku box. In 3 years' time, DSTV get it. Now everybody has to buy a DSTV box. In 3 years' time, we get it again. Everybody has to buy a Zuku box. It becomes a fiasco. And of course, that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Guess what? In the UK, Sky Sports owns the Premier League rights in the UK. But if I'm on Virgin Media, the cable company, I can watch the Sky Sports channel. If I'm in America, I can watch ESPN Sport on Comcast or Verizon or Direct to Home or any of the pay TV operators. I can get ESPN Sports. Why? Because what the regulator does is they say, look, We don't want a fiasco in this market. We don't want a monopoly in this market. What we're going to do is anybody can bid for exclusive rights at an auction, but when they produce that channel, they have to sell that channel at a wholesale level to any pay TV operator, so that there's equality in terms of the competition. Now the operators are competing based on the quality of their service, the quality of their customer service, their pricing, and that benefits the consumer. But telling the consumer he has to go to a different pay TV operator 3 years because there's been an auction of the Premier League is just madness. And of course, if you're the incumbent monopoly, then you're going to make sure you never lose because you're cross-subsidizing between all your markets. Well, so there's a number of things that contribute towards quality of service on the internet. The first one is international capacity. We are constantly upgrading our international capacity. There is still a big issue, which we have asked repeatedly for the Ministry and the Communication Authority to deal with, where the Teams cable is held to ransom in Fujairah by ET Salat. The cross-connect charges are really ridiculously high and really holding back the country. So that's a problem. We also are waiting for Teams to upgrade the cable. As you know, the Teams cable has been waiting for an upgrade for some time, and we expect that upgrade to be completed by the end of the year. But we're constantly upgrading the international capacity, and it's not a question of the capacity deteriorating with increased sales. It's there's a lot of links in the chain which get constantly upgraded. The other thing is we suffer, and we've been trying to deal with this, but we do get cable cuts here in Nairobi due to vandalism. There's really still no enforcement of the law when it comes to vandalizing fiber, and we would really expect the police and the authorities to be doing a lot more to combat that. We also get a lot of vandalism from pirates. As you know, we've complained repeatedly. In Nairobi, for example, there are 2 pirate operators who operate with complete impunity. They don't pay for the television channels they carry. They don't pay the content owners. They don't pay for any of the content they carry, and yet the Copyright Board and the Communications Authority do nothing about it. They know who these operators are. Every time we report it, nothing happens. To start building fiber to the home in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, and we hope to start building in Kampala, and then as we find more opportunities, we will expand into other markets. We're already in 5 markets with our satellite service, but with fiber, it's very capital intensive. It's a lot of investment, and so we have to know that we're going to get the returns and the support from the market. We would love to go and build in Addis Ababa, for example, but as you know, the Ethiopian market is very closed. We don't have any immediate plans to list the company. We would expect that, given that a lot of investors are financial investors, we would expect the company to become liquid over the next 3 to 5 years. But how that liquidity takes place is anybody's guess. Maybe there'll be a listing on the stock exchange. Maybe there'll be a strategic buyer will decide to buy the group, and and maybe not. Maybe the existing shareholders will stay. There's no immediate plans.